I heard about this prison hospice in Iowa at the prison you just saw, and so I went there kind of cold turkey, and I said, I want to do a film here. Could I live in this prison for a year and follow one person going through your hospice program? I want my own cell. Well, they said no to that. So the first 2 months I was in prison, there was no hospice patient. Nobody actually was terminally ill. Jack, I met him because he was in the infirmary. He was a long-termer there in the infirmary, and so were a few other people. And then 2 months into my stay, it started becoming clear that Jack, he had a case of double pneumonia, and he wasn't shaking it. So he basically, it was random. Jack's story kind of fell into my lap, and he was just the next hospice patient there. I mean, for a filmmaker to have access to a maximum security prison and allowed to go wherever, I mean, I went everywhere with my camera. Even on the best of days, it's pretty horrible to be in prison. You just can't shake it. These people, a lot of these people, a lot of them are absolutely damaged and have done really horrible things. A lot of them, you can see where they made a stupid mistake and they're paying for it for the rest of their lives. Most of them, it's the first time they were ever given the chance to do anything with this much compassion. They take pride in what they do. They actually, they're friends. Like Jack is a very good friend of Herky, and to have him pass away and Herky be there, that's huge for them. So I think it's a great opportunity for a lot of these guys to give compassion and love in a prison, in a environment that is really not that conducive to that. Yeah, Marilyn Sales was she founded the hospice, but she wouldn't have been able to start that hospice without the prisoners' buy-in. And she was a dynamo. And I think every prison needs a Marilyn Sales, because if it wasn't for her, this program would not have gotten off the ground. I cashed out my 401k and bought a camera and made this film. It's just hard to get funding for death. And to get funding for death and dying of prisoners, it's a double whammy. So I cut a half-hour reel and I submitted it to this film market in New York City. It's called the Independent Film Market. They take films that are half done and try to make a fit with HBO, A&E, Discovery. One of my meetings was with HBO, and the guy I met said, "Gosh, I really, really love this story. Call me back in 30 days and I'll let you know." So I called him back 30 days to the minute he said that, and he says, because he said I had to show it to the people at HBO. So I called him 30 days later, and he says, the two people that I had to show love it. We have to show it to Sheila Nevins, who is the main lady there. Give us 10 days, call us on Halloween. And oh my God, perfect timing for it. So anyway, so 10 days later I call him, and he says, Sheila Nevins also loved it. She wants to fly you in and meet you. So it was just, they looked at the footage, they saw a great story in there, and they liked the way I filmed it and blah, blah, blah. So it was, kind of just by happenstance. And then from that point on, things just started clicking. The essence of his story and the issues of prison hospice are in this film. And as a filmmaker who is very protective of his footage, I am absolutely happy with what came. I'm ecstatic with how they, I had another brain and a pair of eyes to look through my stuff without me being like, So that was a strategy. They said, well, let's make it a short. And if we make it a short, it stands the chance of possibly at least competing for an Academy Award. In January, I found out that I was on that short list, so I was with another 5 filmmakers. And then from January to March, it was like, it was kind of a dream come true, all this attention, and from a film that basically, I paid for myself, it suddenly got to where it was at. And took my mom to the red carpet. We were actually at that. It's crazy. So no, it was just wonderful. And the people I worked with at HBO, and I'm not saying this because they're here, because they're not. You hear horror stories like, once they get their talents in your stuff, they're never gonna they'll do whatever they want. Well, it was not true at all. They were absolute wonderful to work with. They listened to me. I was in the loop all the time. So I have to say that was a great experience. And then, you know, going to the Oscars was just, you know, I was just totally out of my body. You know, it was crazy. So when I was in the infirmary at the ISP, you know, I got to know Herky and those guys who were equally trained as I was in hospice. And I got to know Jack. And Jack, we talked, you know, for hours. And I did a lot of interviews with Jack, even though he wasn't the next hospice patient. We didn't know at that point. And Jack kind of adopted me as his son also when I was there. So it was, you know, every time I watch this film, I still get choked up because Jack became a very good friend of mine. And his family are friends of mine too, you know, through the filmmaking and over the years. So yeah, I can say that Jack was absolutely a friend of mine. So, and Jack was absolutely aware. And, you know, I told him eventually, I said, look, Jack, I think I'm going to make, you know, I'm making this film about hospice. And, you know, at that point he was in hospice. And I was like, you know, I was just wondering if I could focus on you. And he goes, yeah, go ahead. If it's going to help someone else. You know, Jack was kind of a curmudgeon, but he would also, he also knew that this could be something of a legacy that he leaves behind for other people to see, and making them realize that, you know, this prison hospice is a program that should be adopted, you know, standardized across the country in our correctional system. We have 1,800 correctional facilities roughly in this country. Only 75 have hospice programs, and of those 75, only 20 use inmates as hospice volunteers. So there's a lot of room for improvement. Thankfully, because maybe I got the Academy Award nomination, I got some funding to take the film out on the road. And I'm starting a little bit now, but come spring, I will be taking the film to 50 prisons in 100 days. And to prisons that are maybe sitting on the fence about doing hospice or don't even know about hospice. And because it really is it's not a bank buster, it's not rocket science either. It just takes a little extra work. And maybe certain rules have to be, you know, changed a little bit, but nothing earth-shattering. So that was my whole point of making this film, was to spread the goodness of prison hospice, and especially the way they're doing it with the prisoners incorporating into it, because the goodness of that ripples out of the infirmary and into the general population of the prison. So I have my work cut out for me, but I'm going to try to do my best out there. Well, thanks for showing up.